Welcome to the Sorcery Podcast, your sacred space to delve into spiritual tools, topics, and practices that will illuminate your path of soul remembering and healing. I'm your host, Ligia Costa, a soul guide, alchemist, soul writing coach, and the creator of the Trust Pathway. I'm deeply grateful to have you here with me. Together, we will embark on a profound exploration of self-discovery and healing, unlocking the secrets that lie within. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sorcery Podcast. And today I found it was really important to have a conversation around radical responsibility because it's something that I talk about a lot in the podcast. And I found that people sometimes don't know what I mean by it. And because taking radical responsibility is such an important foundation in our healing journeys, I thought that was really time to talk about it in the podcast. And it is so easy to not take responsibility in our lives and to give excuses or to project blame when we either perceive that we are failing or we are judging ourselves and how things go wrong, and normally we add this pinch of guilt and shame into the mix. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I do talk about this in our healing journeys when, for instance, the same triggers and patterns and wounds keep coming, even though we thought we've healed that already, and how easy it is for our brains to make those things mean something about us. Normally that we are failing, that we are not good enough, that we are not doing the inner work properly, and how it's a normal human response to go into the victim archetype. And yeah, if you haven't listened to the previous episode, I would really recommend that you do. And yeah, so if you catch yourself saying things like, I don't have enough time, or I'm too busy, I don't have enough money, or I don't know enough, or this will take me ages to learn, or this is too hard, know that you are not alone, okay? And let me know if this sounds familiar. I certainly catch myself saying some of these things, and at the time it does sound like a valid reason, you know. I have 3 children that are all in different age groups. I run my business from home. I have a dog to look after, and I have, normal day-to-day routines that I need to consider and juggle sometimes on a daily basis. And that requires a lot of my energy, physical, mental, and emotional. And it certainly got affected a lot more after I lost my dad, because obviously then my health deteriorated. Emotionally, I just don't have the capacity, and things, sometimes easy things, take me longer to do or drain me much more than they used to before. And so I certainly catch myself saying that I don't have enough time or that it's too hard, because that's how I feel. And in that moment, it feels true. And it feels like a valid reason, which I'm not taking away the validity of these emotions, not in my life nor in yours. That's not what I'm here to do. But if we catch ourselves saying things like, I don't have enough time, and then we spend hours scrolling mindlessly on Facebook, or we spend hours watching a series on Netflix so that we have an excuse and don't do the things that we need to get done, then something is off, right? Then that's when radical responsibility comes into context. So, as I speak about radical responsibility, it's a lot in this context of owning our behaviors, owning our thoughts, owning our feelings, our reaction to things, our actions. And I find it really important to talk about it and the patterns that we fall back to when we don't take responsibility for our own stuff. Right? So it's about taking radical responsibility for us, our actions, our behaviors, our thinking, and our stuff, not other people's stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. Because whilst it feels very true and valid and within reasoning what we are experiencing, I also know to be true that we create time, for example. No one will come along and gift us with more time or extra hours in a day. And I don't know if you ever read the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, but he does say that time is an illusion. Time is an illusion that the humankind created to keep the mind in control and trapped in living life through our memories, which is our past, and anticipating things, which is our future. So we all live in this same illusionary clock time with the same hours in the day. But as humankind, we created an identification really with past and future when we attach ourselves with the illusion of clock time scarcity, which translates to I don't have enough time. And then we create self-inflicted stress and overwhelm and frustration because we are running late without realizing that actually time is an illusion. And I'm coming from a place of scarcity when I say that I don't have enough time. And I'm conscious that when I use the terms clock time scarcity and time being an illusion, I know that for most of us, time is a real thing. Again, I'm not taking away the validity of it. But without going deeper into this matter, I really recommend you to read The Power of Now, because Tolle explains why time is an illusion and because the only time that we have is now. It's now, in the present moment, in this second. Nothing exists outside the now, which is the present moment, because nothing ever happened in the past. And the future is an imagined projection of the now. So the only thing that exists and that is real is this present moment, is now. What we are doing now. And what we are doing now will be part of the illusion of the past 3 minutes from now. And the illusion of the future will stop being the future to become the present when we get there. So yeah, I totally recommend this book. It's quite eye-opening and a great, great read. But for the context of this conversation, I speak about time as an illusion we create that, although feels real, it also changes according to our circumstances. And it also changes with our cycles, both our inner cycles and nature's. But it takes to own the narrative that there isn't enough time to change it. It takes me to own that I'm creating my reality. And if I feel overwhelmed, and if I feel that I don't have enough energy, I get to take radical responsibility for my life and for things have not worked because I've been buying into this illusion that I don't have enough time, and then choosing something different because all that is happening, it's my responsibility. I created that. So what I want to say about radical responsibility is to remind you that being responsible for what you create, for how you react or for how you behave, and being accountable to your words, to your desires, to your goals, to your dreams, to your choices, is very different from taking blame. And this is where a lot of people get confused between taking radical responsibility and then making it mean that it's just blaming. Taking radical responsibility is about holding ourselves accountable, right? It's about honoring ourselves, honoring our values, our worth, our vision. When we blame either others or circumstances or even ourselves, we are simply projecting our insecurities, our self-judgment, and our fears onto different things. What I wanted to realize is that being this blame vibration is being the energy of lack. Because blaming is believing that we lack what it takes to be or get what we want. Blame is clinging on needing something in order to feel better. And clinging on what it should be. And here's the key word, should. Accountability, on the other hand, is the energy of abundance. Because when you are accountable, you believe that you are where you are meant to be. And you are doing the best that you can with what you know and what you have. And there is so much more that can happen to support you. And you see the difference here. With blaming being things should be this way, whilst when you are accountable, you feel there is so much more that can happen. This is not all that is. There is a lot that can happen to support me. Also, blaming is this energy of stagnation, of, being stuck, being lost, being out of control. As for accountability, is the energy of growth and the energy of new possibilities. Is being illuminating and shedding light to all that we are being and doing and noticing it for what it is. Blame, on the other hand, is being with our shadows, right? Is not accepting them as part of who we are. Because when you blame, you project those shadows onto others. You project the things that you reject in yourself, the things that you don't accept in yourself, the things that you feel ashamed and guilty. You project that onto other people. You're not accepting them as part of who you are. And a huge part of taking radical responsibility is noticing when you are identifying with your shadow self. So notice the difference when you are blaming yourself versus when you are taking responsibility for who you are, for who you are being, and how you are showing up. And notice the difference in your life when you are in the energy of blame versus the energy of being accountable. Because a lot of the things that then unfold are basically a mirror of the energies that we are embodying inside of us. So if you are in this energy of blame, things will unfold in a way that will make you face your shadows more and project them more because you're not accepting them as part of who you are, and therefore you're not taking responsibility for your healing. As for if you are in the energy of being accountable, the things will unfold in a way that will support that choice, that will mirror to you that you are in the right path. So what I invite you to notice here is not the labeling that our mind automatically creates about one being good and the other being bad. And that's another important thing. Because when we think about blame, we label it as, oh, this is not a good thing, right? And being accountable and being responsible as being a good thing. It's not about labels here. It's not about choosing between bad and good and projecting this energy. Again, this is what our thinking goes to and our emotions, most importantly, go to. Because we were raised to believe that blame is a bad thing. That when you were blamed for something, you were punished for it. Therefore, it's a bad thing. So the important thing here is really to let those labels go and for you to not identify with one or the other. Let me explain. I would like to really invite you to understand that when you choose to take radical responsibility in your life, you shift the need to project your insecurities and your fears, and you realize that once you fully own your behaviors and your beliefs and your thoughts, your excuses, and what you are doing, you have the power to change them. And this doesn't mean you will stop having fears about doing things, or that you will stop the narratives around excuses, such as not having enough time, not having enough knowledge, not having enough experience or money. And this doesn't mean you'll stop projecting your fears and insecurities to validate what you perceive to be wrong with you and to be a failure, right? However, it does mean that you are able to spot those times where you fall into the child and the victim archetypes, and you are able to grow bigger than your fears. And you are able to claim back your power to change what's going on in your life and what's going on around the stories that you keep telling yourself. So basically, part of taking radical responsibility and being accountable is being able to live with the consequences of your choices. Because it's very well and good when things go our way and things go well and there is success involved, that we don't mind taking responsibility for things panning out that way. But then is when things don't go our way and we perceive that we failed, that's when we have a hard time taking responsibility for the consequences. And I've seen this happening so many times. So it's really important that when you do take radical responsibility and you are accountable, that you live with the choices that you make, despite if the choices take you to great success or things don't go the way that you want. And especially in these moments, that's when it's important to own it, to own the consequences when things go wrong, and being okay with that, because you get to be okay with that. You get to be okay with yourself. You get to be responsible for the choices that you make that led you to that, and then you get to practice deep self-forgiveness and self-acceptance instead of blaming yourself or the circumstances or other people if things go wrong. And by being able to live with the ramifications of our choices, we get to make the commitment around the language that we use. When we identify with the narratives and the excuses that don't serve us, the shadow parts of ourselves that we haven't accepted, we get to change that language. For example, if you normally identify as being busy, right? Being busy all the time, you might tend to use language that says, I don't have time. I was very busy. Life got in the way. Or I was swamped in work. Or with everything that's been happening, I just didn't have time. And so try to shift the language to something that is more positive and empowering, such as I was prioritizing work, or I am engaged in a project, or I am fortunate to have a lot of work right now, or I'm having a productive week. So you see the difference here? You go from lack of, I don't have time, I was swamped in work, and it's just not the scarcity of time, is that energy that is heavy, like life got in the way, I was busy. That very heavy energy to this very exciting energy that just says, I've been prioritizing other things in my life, or I'm engaged in another things in my life that are taking more of my time and energy, or I'm having a productive week. Isn't this more positive than just keeping these narratives that are heavy and take the power away from you? And also, changing this language also helps to change the narrative that you have to or that you need to do something in order to either be more or to do more or to get more. When you say that I have to learn more about tarot so I can start to do readings, or I need to commit to a spiritual practice every day, you are actually coming from, again, this energy of lack, of scarcity, of pushing and forcing an outcome and adding extra pressure and extra stress on yourself. But if you change the I have or I need to for I get to, the energy just shifts automatically. So, for example, I get to learn more about tarot so I can start doing readings with more confidence. Or I get to commit to one spiritual practice a day and see what benefits I get from it. You see, did you feel the energy shifting? Because you go from this, again, energy that is heavy, that is lacking, that is pushing, to an energy that is the energy of choice, of possibilities, of empowerment, of excitement even. So you stop being the victim and martyr archetype that needs and has to do something or be something, and you become the sovereign. You go into the sovereign archetype. So the energy is completely different. So start by just changing your language and you'll start to see the difference. And then it's just being accountable and being okay with your choices, even if things don't go your way. Because nothing is a bad choice, in my perspective. You either get what you desire or you get a lesson out of it. So you're always winning anyway. That's how I see things. So taking full radical responsibility is having this deep inner knowing that you and your essence, that your being, your light is more than your circumstances. It's so much more than, for example, your financial situation or the illusion of time. It's so much more than the excuses your mind feeds you to keep you from moving forward. And it's so much more than your conditioning. Oh, so much more than your conditioning. So I really invite you to ask yourself, what are the excuses that I've been telling myself right now? Am I taking radical responsibility for that? Without blame, without judgment, and without shame? And where in my life are these excuses showing up? And if you'd like some more guidance on this, my Trust Journaling deck gifts you with the kind and nurturing guidance through the stepping stones of your healing journey. And by creating space for silence and connecting within regularly, using soul inquiries that support your healing journey, you'll be able to tap into these stories and these languages that you've been using and you've been living that are just holding you back. And you'll be able to get the awareness of the generational conditioning that is repeating within you. You will be guided to reflect and heal the aspects of you that live with guilt, that live with shame and resentment, so that you can open your heart to forgiveness and to healing. So that you can accept the shadows as part of who you are instead of projecting those shadows onto others. And I have a small restock of only 2 decks, physical decks available. And they make the perfect soul gift to yourself or to a loved one because they are a gift for the soul. They are a gift for connection with your higher self, for the guidance that your soul needs in order to heal. And I use this deck all the time in all the episodes. At the end of each episode, as you know, you've been listening to this podcast. Since the beginning, I've been using and pulling 1 card at the end of each episode. And all the cards that come out, they are always related to the conversation that we had. They take the listener deeper into the conversation, into the theme, and just brings a lot of reflection and introspection that, it's needed. It's needed when we're doing the inner work so we can understand who we are at a soul level. I will link the deck in the show notes for you. If you want a physical deck, as I said, I have 2 in stock. I post them internationally as well. Obviously, postage depends on the country that you are in. But if you would like the digital option, I will link it as well in the show notes. So I have this deck that you can download from your Apple iPhone or iPad or Android phone, and you can have the deck with you in your pocket all the time. So I'm going to pull a card from the Trust Journaling deck. Oh my god. Okay. The card that came out is from the Reflection Suite, and the soul inquiry is, what do I tell myself about myself? How does it make me feel? What do I tell myself about myself? How does it make me feel? And the affirmation is, I am more than my circumstances dictate. Oh my gosh, I can't make this up. Seriously, I intuitively take a card out. Like, I shuffle the deck and I intuitively pull a card. And I just said all the cards are in alignment with the conversation. So I don't prepare these things beforehand. And this was the card that came out. All about taking radical responsibility. What do I tell myself about myself? Are you accepting yourself, right? Like, we talked about being accountable for our choices, and what are the narratives that we say about ourselves when things don't go our way? How does that make me feel? And then is choosing to not let the circumstances dictate. I'm more than my circumstances dictate. It doesn't matter if the choices you make don't go your way. Just be okay with that. Because you're so much more than that outcome, that circumstance, right? So I really hope you have enjoyed this episode. I absolutely love to talk about this. If you do have any questions about it, just reach out on social media, DM me on Instagram, or send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Sorcery Podcast and for holding space for this conversation. It is truly magical to be able to walk with you on this journey of soul healing and inner transformation. If you resonated with this episode and found it valuable, I would be grateful if you could leave a review on iTunes. Your feedback helps me reach more souls searching for guidance and healing. For more guidance and soul wisdom to support soul awakening women through the journey of alchemy, please visit my website www.ligiacosta.co.uk. Love and healing to all. See you on the next one.